Noel Nation, sorry for the wait, guys. We had a few technical difficulties, if you can see by the picture here. It's a little wonky compared to normal, but anyways, we got in here. What a victory, man. What a game. It didn't go exactly to plan, but, this team just keeps doing what this team does, coming out and, in the fourth quarter and getting that win. Florida State, once again, stays undefeated. North Carolina goes down. Wow, what a game! You just prayers out to Riley Leonard. Hope he's all right. He wanted to come back in that game, big time. It didn't happen. They didn't let him back in the game. Unfortunately, the coach wouldn't let him in. Mike Elko kind of saving him from himself there. Jordan Travis, kind of the big story of the game in the first half. He was not running the ball. And Duke, give credit to their defense. They were just absolutely lights out in that first half, creating short fields. They stopped Florida State 2 times in the first half on fourth down, get turnovers. And boy, that certainly hurt. Man, yeah, I'm still looking at the chat, and yeah, if Riley hadn't went down, that certainly could have gone a lot different. But unfortunately, in football, that's just what you get. And regardless of whether Riley kind of would have came back, the big difference was the Florida State offense. Also in the second half was Jordan Travis running. Previously to this game, if you listen to the Wednesday live show with us, we talked about some of the key points in the games. I did a big tweet with my kind of 6 big takes before the game. You needed Jordan Travis to get 10 plus carries. We needed to see Jaheim Bell be a part of the offense. And we saw both of those things. Unfortunately, they did try to get Jaheim Bell going early and often, and kept feeding it to him the entire game, along with both the other tight ends, Marcus Douglas and Kyle Morlock as well. Missed Morlock a couple times in the first half. But again, the Knowles even cover the spread. I had it picked something like 44, 45 to 21 or something like that. It ends up 38-20. You can't be happier, man. All the trash talk early in the season, all the kind of narrative around the nation was, close game this, close game that, because nobody had really played anybody. But now we're seeing as the season goes on, that undefeated list keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the Noles just continue to handle business. They extend their streak to 13 games now, I believe, of 30 points or more. Florida State has 30 points or more in 13 straight games, 13 straight wins. It's a hell of a ride, man. The ACC championship, we've talked about all the different kind of possibilities of who could end up being in the ACC championship. With this win, Florida State kind of just puts us in a really good situation. You got Wake Forest and Pittsburgh and Miami is who you got left in the conference. And you got a 1-game lead at minimum against everybody else in the conference with North Carolina going down. So you could even afford to drop one, God forbid. I don't think it happens. But say for, some kind of circumstance, you drop one to Wake or you mess around and drop one to Miami, I think you're still in that ACC championship and you still, got everything in front of you. But you are going to be favored in the rest of your games, probably by a touchdown or 2 the rest of the way. Somebody in the chat, let me know how that Miami Clemson game ended up. Are they in overtime or what? Blitzburg here. Let's start putting some comments up. Michigan hasn't played anyone, but you can still tell they're good watching the team. There's no doubt. If you want to talk about after, Florida State's playoff chances after tonight, I think you're back to saying you have the best resume in the nation. If you're Florida State with this Duke win, say what you want about the quarterback. It is what it is. Florida State won the game. You get a win over a number 16 opponent to go with that LSU win early in the year and the Clemson win, depending on what happens. If Clemson wins, they're going to be ranked. I guess whoever wins Clemson or Miami, whoever wins this game is going to end up being ranked. And you play Miami, so it's a win-win whoever wins this thing. I sure would like to talk trash to Miami fans if they fall to Clemson, but yeah, last I saw, it looked like it was going into overtime. But yeah, Florida State fans, man, I'm right there with you. It's easy to kind of get aggravated in the first half of these games for whatever reason. Florida State has still yet to have that 4-quarter dominant performance for 4 quarters of a game. You go out there and the first half was tough. The first half was tough, guys. Those two, I already mentioned it earlier, but those 2 fourth down stops, those were huge. He turned over the ball on the wrong side of the field twice. And that's kind of what Duke has done all year. You go back to the game against Clemson. They beat Clemson 28-7. Clemson outgained them. And their offense, in that game only had like 200 yards, but they turned the ball over and scored in short territory. Of course, we give up the pick 6 by Jordan on a throw where he kind of forces it, and just in a play that you just absolutely cannot do against, Duke. He forces it into double coverage right there on his own 10-yard or something like that. They get the pick 6, but, you get the kick return to answer it. I was complaining in the first half. That's another thing that aggravated me in the first half. They all of a sudden started taking kicks back from deep out of the end zone. It's something Florida State hadn't done all year. The big return by Trey Benson earlier was, one that was on like the 1 yard, and Deuce Spain gets his shot. They hang one short, and sure enough, he catches it and goes. Big giant thing coming out of this game. Jaheim Bell. How about Jaheim Bell? The game he had out there today, he was kind of the rock that kept us in that game up until the fourth quarter explosion. Every time we needed a big play, he was there. Jaheim Bell really had a few after having 4 catches and 87 yards last week. We'll have to look and see what his stats are, but he had an amazing game, a lot of touches. Again, the big key to the game, Jordan Travis in that second half started running the ball, and it really, really opened up the offense. One of the keys to my game was he needed to run it 10 times, and boy, did he ended up doing it, and he, made some of his signature runs to just, really put the nail in the coffin. 21 points in the fourth quarter. Yet again, another big time performance by Jordan Travis. See what we got going on. Sorry about that, guys. See what we got going on here in the chat. I'm having a little bit of issue here. How did Michigan look like without their sign stealer? Yeah, I don't think Michigan was spending too much of their efforts in their sign stealing operation aimed at Michigan State. I don't think I'm not sure what their record is, but it seems like every time you turn around, Michigan State is getting beat by 1,000,000 points. PSU goes down to Ohio State today, another undefeated off the board to go along with North Carolina. Somebody says a moment of silence for them. I saw a lot of overreactions, people talking about James Franklin and needing to get rid of him after their loss today, but I think he's the absolute the answer there. I think they should keep him. And if you kind of think back to what Michigan did the first 5, 6, 7 years of Jim Harbaugh's tenure there, it's not till really the past 2 or 3 years that they became legitimate playoff contenders. So there's no reason James Franklin can't make that same thing happen at Penn State eventually. So yeah, we'll see what happens with James Franklin, but I think they're just fine, and it's overreactions. We'll see how they do the rest of the year. You never know what happens. All 3 of those teams could end up with 1 loss, and Penn State could wind up in it. You never know. But Ohio State definitely looked great today with the wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. He just continues to make plays and make plays and make plays. No, John, I don't have access to that. I'm not sure if Mark is going to join, if you want to hit him up and see what's going on. I think he was just going to cut to the different post-game shows and throw them up here. I'm not sure exactly. But what a night in college football, guys. What a night. People think Michigan will do whatever, but they don't belong in the top 5. Look, I'm here or there on that, Tony. Michigan passes the eye test and all that stuff. I think you can make an argument. I don't think, people can be upset if if a team like Florida State can have an argument for being ahead of Michigan, but to say they don't belong in the top 5, I think that's a bridge too far. It's not like they haven't played some Power 5 teams and blown them out. You got to give it to Michigan. We've seen what they are. They brought a lot of the same guys back. They got a quarterback that's a year older. And I'm somebody who is completely impartial on that. I'm not, I have no weight in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, but, they beat them 2 years in a row, I believe. And Michigan they're a player. They're one of the top 4 teams in the nation, no doubt. To me, it's Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, and Florida State are your top 4 teams. I'm not sure that Washington, we'll see. If they win out, they're going to be right there. It's going to be something. There's a good chance you could have 5 teams right there, and you're going to have to make a decision with all 5 conference champions being undefeated possibly, or with just one loss. Somebody's going to have to make a decision there at the playoff committee. I don't think there's any way an undefeated Florida State gets left out. I don't think there's any way an undefeated Big Ten champion gets left out. Same thing with the SEC. If Georgia runs the table, they're not going to get left out. I think it ends up coming between whatever happens in the Pac-12 or the Big 12. Maybe if Texas comes back and beats Oklahoma in the championship game, that takes the Big 12 out of it if the Pac-12 is undefeated, or vice versa. It's a weird year in college football. You look around and you see parity to a certain extent, but to a certain extent, it seems like the top 10 teams have kind of separated. I've seen this stat a bunch. Anytime one of the top 15 teams has been rated, or not rated, favored by 10 points or more, that team's won. I think it's something like 80-1 or something on the year. So it's like, as much as there's parity, these top 10s aren't really losing a ton of games. You have your games like North Carolina. We'll have to see what that was there. They dropped one. They could be one added to that list of 10-point favorites to drop out of that top 10, but top 15. But actually, I don't know if they were in the preseason top 15 or not. But man, getting back to what we cover here at the Renegade Report, man. Florida State goes out and they are, again, 7-0. 7-0 for the first time since 2014, I believe. There's been a lot of kind of different ideas about Mike Norvell. High school recruiting has been an issue that a lot of people have brought out. He's sitting number 4, number 5, number 6 in the country, depending on what service you look at. As they keep stacking up these wins, the kind of just building the groundswell of support inside Tallahassee and outside of it. You look at the TV numbers that are, like, I believe, still averaging 5 million per, even with the 2 kind of down weeks with lesser opponents. Florida State is really, they're setting themselves up for long-term success. They finally get the buy-in. You get the booster situation set up with Michael Alford. They got the football facility coming on in 2025. If they can keep this thing going and keep running, get undefeated, I think it's kind of ACC title or bust, but whether they win the playoffs or not, just get there. What a major year for Mike Norvell, and what a kind of turner, a page turned in the book of that kind of process to become a championship. Bobby Bowden said it a long time ago. When you're turning a program around, you come and you start, you got to restart things, and you might be at rock bottom. You lose big, then you lose small, then you win small, then you win big. The Noles are finally winning big, and it feels real good. Things haven't been perfect. They've had their trials in some of these games. They've gone down 10 multiple times, but they find a way to win. And the adjustments made at half continue to be amazing. Teams have not scored on Florida State in the second half at all. They just haven't done it outside of the Boston College game when Florida State had, whether it was COVID or the flu or whatever was going on, a majority of the team was sick. Besides that 19 points given up against them, it has been just absolute domination by Adam Fuller in the second half of these games. And this FSU defense have just been amazing. Let's see here. When you want to look at, kind of playmakers that stood out on the defense, the defensive line, there wasn't like one guy that just stood out and absolutely destroyed for the Noles tonight, but they just continually wore down on this this Duke front. That Duke defense, man, they came out and they were gangbusters in the first half. Everybody knows they played extremely difficult, disciplined, if you will, brand of football, and you cannot make any mistakes against them. You have to be on your P's and Q's at all times, and that's kind of what this defense did. Even though they kept hitting us with a bunch of runs, 3, 4, 5 yards, and it was just absolutely infuriating at times. The guys, they never gave up. They never gave in. They just kept pounding the ball. And just continue to fight. Continue to fight. Florida State, again, 7-0 if you're just joining us. If you guys have any questions, want to talk about anything, throw it in the chat. We'll throw it up on the screen and get this thing going. Terrible play by Clemson, James Richard said. Let me know what's going on, guys. What do they got going on in that Clemson game? Are they in overtime? Is Miami going to get that win? What's going on? UW doesn't look hot. Yeah, I'm not I have not bought in on UW all year. I know that they're a great team. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they aren't a top 10 team, top 15 team, whatever you want to call it. I just don't think Washington has done what it takes to take that next step and make it to a playoff and actually compete. Hot take, if you want to call it that. I just don't see it. I think, the story of the Pac-12 has been great this year, but that's just what it is, kind of a great story. I really thought if they were going to do it, it was going to be on the back of a team like Oregon, somebody built more like a team, a more stereotypical national title team. And when I saw them get taken out like that versus Washington, and it's not like Washington blew anybody away in that game. They handled business, and as a Florida State fan, believe me, I can understand getting judged for that. But just looking forward, I have no problem with Washington is in the rankings and being the contender, but just when you're going to look at the conferences and the kind of strength and out of conference matchups, I don't see a Washington going in and be able to physically handle a Michigan or an Ohio State or a Georgia in that playoff. We'll see. They could very much prove me wrong. Kareem Abdul, my guy, Miami won. Whew, wow. So Miami moves to 5-2 on the year, or is it 6-2 on the year? Wow. Did not see that one coming. Let's see. Let's see here. Caleb Williams. Yeah, Miami 5-2, Clemson 4-3. It's going to be hard to deal with the Miami fans. They are going to be extremely excited, but you got to give it to them, man. Mario Cristobal in year 2 is absolutely getting it done. They beat a bunch of nobodies. Well, you can't say that about Clemson, man. Say what you will about Clemson. They're a good ball club. They're not the Clemson of old, but, Clemson coming off a bye as well. Like I see somebody in the chat said. When you get past those first 10, 15 teams, I mean, you've got 40 teams that could all be ranked. You could put any of them in the rankings. And I think, Miami's up there. They're going to probably be ranked, and I can't be too upset about it as much as I can't stand anything orange. Bear with me just a minute, guys. Get this thing straightened out. I believe we have a feed issue here.